Here at Civil War Camp, one of our main purposes is to try to give you a better idea of what it was like to actually be a Civil War soldier. And so a lot of the activities that we present revolve around that. One of the things that we want to do right now is to talk a little bit about the individual lives of those soldiers, and especially what camp life was like, some of the things that they did and what they carried, and how they lived from day to day. According to one historian, the average Civil War soldier was a white, native-born, farmer, Protestant, single, between 18 and 29. He stood about 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighed about 143 pounds. Most soldiers were between the ages of 18 and 39, with an average of just under 26. Most of this information comes from Union soldiers, where there were more detailed records. There were about 3 million soldiers who fought, with about 2 million Union soldiers and about 750,000 to 1 million Confederates. What would cause a young man to leave home and risk their life in battle? For many, it was a chance for adventure. It sounded like fun, and their friends were doing it, so they didn't want to be left out. Many of these men would never travel very far away from home in their lifetime, and this was a chance to travel and see places they had only heard about. Even places locally like Hampton, Jamestown, Williamsburg, and Yorktown, where moments in America's history took place, were exciting for these soldiers to visit. For some, it was a job and a chance to make money for themselves or their families. At the beginning of the war, the average soldier was paid $11 a month, plus their clothing, food, and shelter. For some, their fathers or grandfathers had served in earlier wars like the Mexican War and the Revolution, and they wanted to be like them. Soldiers from both sides sometimes joined because of patriotism for their side. For Confederates, since most of the fighting took place in the South, some felt they had to fight to protect their homes. For some Union soldiers, they felt they needed to fight to free the slaves in the South. Some joined because they were made to. They were drafted. For the most part, those that were drafted were between the ages of 18 and 35. In the South, this meant that most men between those ages were forced to join. On both sides, some wealthier men hired substitutes to take their place, so they didn't have to fight. These Civil War soldiers came from a lot of backgrounds. Some came from prosperous backgrounds, while many were poorer. Most were farmers, but there were many other occupations represented, from carpenters to teachers to store workers. Many, especially from the North, were factory workers. Many officers were from wealthier families. Most were from America, but about a quarter were from other countries, mostly German and Irish. At the beginning of the war, African Americans were not allowed to join the Army, although they could serve in the Union Navy in limited ways. By the middle of the war, the Union Army began to allow them to join, but the units were segregated units with white officers. About 180,000 men served in these units. A common question about Civil War soldiers asked about women in the ranks. Women were not allowed to join the Army, but women did join in limited numbers, but they had to hide their identity. As a result, we don't know how many served. Some historians think the number was fairly large, while others think it was pretty small. For Union and Confederate soldiers during the Civil War, they would have to carry everything that was important on them. The wagons that they had carrying food and supplies would not often stay close by, so the most important things they had to carry with them, such as their food for a few days, ammunition, and their shelter. So we've got our Union and Confederate soldiers here have stopped and are beginning to set up their camp now.
So each soldier has a half of a tent. It's called a shelter half, And if you look along the top here, you'll see that it's actually got buttons and buttonholes countered, and he's got his half and I've got my half. We're going to take these and we're going to actually button them together, and that's going to make our tent for the night. So you hold on to that. Cut away, Mr. So what Justin and I have done is we've actually taken our halves and we've buttoned it together so that you can see there's buttons, and that this is my half and that's his half. He had that in his pack, I have this in my pack. So we're going to get together now, and as we were walking in, we go ahead and lay it flat. We each picked up a couple of poles, and we took the poles and we made two ends and our stakes. So with just a standard hatchet or a tomahawk, only one of us has to carry that extra weight. We got a couple pieces of twine. We cut up one of the poles, make stakes. We got wood stakes, we got two poles, we got a hammer. So we're ready to go. We're going to start putting this together. So we're going to put a pole on each end, and I'm going to stake in one side, and then we're going to stake in the other. You got your stake? Are you good with putting that stake in? Pull it out the other side, off the top. There you go. Pull it tight. Pull it square. Justin, pull it back. It's tight. There you go.
All right, so now our Union soldiers have finally gotten their camp set up. A nice shelter tent to keep off the worst of the weather, and they can stay under that and then get ready to move at a very short amount of time. Now for our Confederate soldier, he's been done for a long time. He, like many soldiers on both sides, does not have a tent to carry with him, so he has his gum blanket, which is a piece of canvas that's been waterproofed on one side underneath of him to stay dry, and then a blanket to put over top of him, and he's sleeping out in the elements. Now, if the weather got bad, he and some others might have to get together and make some type of shelter, or he could roll over half of what he's got over top of him to keep himself at least somewhat dry, and make sure he puts his gun in with him as well. So now it's time for our soldiers to pack up. It's time to head on out. So they're getting their gear back on, and they're going to pack up and get ready to go.
So we struck the tent, and I put my shelter half in. Justin put his in there. My gum blanket that I slip on is going to go slipping right in here, so if it rains, you can pull it out, and I have a poncho during the march. So I close up my knapsack. It's a 2-bag. And of course, at this point, I've got on my sack coat, and I've got on my leathers, which is my battle fighting stuff, as Justin does. So I got my cartridge box for my cartridges, rounds. I got my cap box for for the primers to set it off. And I've got so that's my leathers and my bayonet. So that's all my battle fighting gear along with my rifle. So I'm ready to fight, but I'm not ready to live. So every soldier's got a haversack, and in my haversack I've got a tin plate, I got a coffee cup, that's the most important item, I got food, and I got utensils. And so that goes on next. It's going to go on my left side, and we should all have our haversack for food. The officers marches off, we always make sure we have food. And then I've got a canteen, most important piece that you never want to go anywhere without water. I've got my water that goes on top of the haversack on my left. So at this point I'm in light marching order with my rifled musket. I've got my battle gear on the right, I've got my living gear on my left, and I'm ready to march out. If fall in for dress parade or to do the next duty that they give me. Okay, so each soldier's on the line. They're ready to be told to sling packs and or sling their bedroll. And we've all got our rifle. It's on the right side, lock plate up. We've ground arms. And our backpacks, if you have a backpack, is so that the toe's facing us. And we're going to want to do it this way if we're doing an inspection, because we would flip it open. This is a double bag knapsack for the Federal Army with our blanket on top. So we're going to take our backpack up and we're going to hold it by the straps, and then we're going to, one side is attached permanently, the other side is not. So that's going to go on our left shoulder up, and then on this side we're going to reach around, grab that strap, bring it over our shoulder, and it's got a hook in the back. We hook it, and then we've got two straps here we can hook across our chest. It helps take some of the strain off. You have it? Okay, so go ahead and sling your bedroll. You can see it's much easier with the bedroll, lighter. He doesn't carry checkers and chests and stuff like that, but he's got what he needs. He wants you to turn. So you can see the wool blanket's on top, and it's fits so it fits within my shoulders, so it doesn't stick out and bother our file mates when we're marching. The next order we'd be given is to raise arms. We're just going to reach down, grab our rifle, bring it back up, and now we're in a position of attention, ready to shoulder arms and march off with the day.
As you can see, the backgrounds of these soldiers were very different, but as they served in the war, they had similar experiences which bonded them together for the rest of their lives. None would ever forget the horrors they witnessed, but also the close bonds that they created with their fellow soldiers, even to those who used to be their enemies.